you need to have a system for selling. How do you want that sales call to go? What is the system for managing that phone call? Because if you don't have a defined system to take control of the sales call, then the customer is going to control the call.
This is the PMP Industry Insider Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome out to another episode of the PMP Industry Insider Podcast, where we take a look at what is changing in the pest and lawn industries, and we take you to the front lines to those that are driving those changes. I'm Donnie Shelton, owner of Triangle Home Services, which has Triangle Pest as well as Triangle Lawn. We are back. I should say we're back. We're back from a nice vacation weekend. Dan and I was discussing. Dan is here. And Dan, would you mind introducing yourself, which no one knows you, by the way. Sheri, our sponsors, our fantastic topic. I already gave away who our guest is going to be. It's just I'm on the bad spot here. So let's get going with that, and then after that, I'm excited about this episode.
All right, I'll go down the checklist, and you tell me what I'm missing.
Okay.
Well, hello, everybody. Dan Gordon, PCO Bookkeepers and M&A specialists, and we are happy to be here right after Labor Day. And if you are interested in marketing services, please support our sponsor, Coalmarch by WorkWave. That's coalmarch.com. And if you're interested in industry-specific insurance, please visit our sponsor, PestSure. That's pestsure.com. And both of those will help you. If you're interested in joining one of our industry peer groups that are run by David Billingsley, go back and listen to episode 136 for more information, or visit pmpindustryinsider.com/peer groups. And David is, I don't know, there's probably 50 or 60 people involved in this thing now. It's going pretty well. So pretty excited about that. And speaking of coaching and peer groups and all that fun, we have one of my favorite people in the pest control industry with us today. And before I introduce her, we're going to be speaking. Donnie came up with this title. It's pretty forward thinking. From lead to lifetime customer, transforming sales in pest control. And to help us explore the topic, we have, as I said, one of my favorite people in the industry, Sheri Spencer Bachman, who is a second-generation pest management professional and owner of the Pest Control Business Coach consulting firm based in Canton, Georgia. She was previously the owner of Spencer Pest Services in Greenville, South Carolina, which was acquired by Haley Capital in 2021 when it launched Rocket Pest. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And she actually, you own some other branches in Florida a while back, pretty good sized company. At Pest Control Business Coach, she offers a variety of services, including Colby assessments and sales training. And today we're going to focus on sales. Mm-hmm. But before welcome, Sheri.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, Sheri.
Well, finished reading, now it's time to go.
Dan got in the zone, right?
Yeah,
he got in the zone.
That's totally it. So anyway, before we get into the specifics about what you do now and whatnot, tell us about your journey and how you got here. I met you, I don't know, it's got to be 20 years ago or more.
Oh, at least. Are we that old?
Yeah, well, I guess.
Yeah.
We met when we were 4.
We started young.
Yep.
So anyway, tell us about your background. How it's a very interesting background. It's a great story.
A little bit different. So in 1990, I joined my father in the pest control industry. I went in to computerize the books and never left. And so he had manual books at the time, tracking customers with the old ledger cards and all that fun stuff. And so got them converted to computer software and never left because I loved the customer service aspects of the industry. And so I kind of came up differently than most second generations, where I went up through CSR, sales, and then into management, and eventually took over the company. I got promoted as president in 2006. And 3-4 weeks later, my dad was diagnosed with stage 5 cancer and was given less than 4 weeks to live. And so he handed the company to me in a week and went to MD Anderson in Houston and ended up surviving another 5.5 years. So it was a kind of interesting journey.
That is an interest. So you got thrown into it.
I got thrown into the whole ownership part, yes, and running more, above corporate level. I knew how to run operations, but when I took over for him as president, but I didn't know how to do so much that he did. And so, I kind of got baptized by fire a little bit, and then had time to allow him to mentor me and bought the business from him before he passed. Matter of fact, when I sold my Florida locations, I signed on February 1st and he passed away on February 2nd. And
Wow.
I was signing his death certificate when I signed those papers. So that wasn't a fun day, but yeah. So,
Well,
Wow.
I guess that brings me to the first question, because I had a feeling that we would talk about that in your journey. When you had your pest control company, you had this pink theme. So, and I just remember going into one of your supply closets, and I got a nice pink hat. And so tell us about the pink theme. How was it conceived? What it meant to you?
So, in honor of my dad, we created a thing called Pest Control for a Cure. And Pest Control for a Cure, we donated for every new customer, we made a donation to a cancer nonprofit. And we also did fundraising. We also participated in a lot of cancer events, and I sat on a lot of cancer nonprofit boards. I sat on the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society board and American Cancer Society boards as well. So it was our way of giving back, and it kind of ended up creating a little bit of a cause marketing type of thing for us. But as we did that, pink kind of came in, which I really enjoyed because I was a female-owned company. And so why not wear pink and let those female who, with females being our number one target person that buys, why not attract them through the color pink? So it was interesting when we switched pink shirts and pink trucks and everything going pink. And it was actually an interview question: will you wear pink? So not all men will. So it was a top requirement.
You got NFL players wearing pink, so
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Wow, that's hilarious. That's awesome.
But we ended up building our whole culture around it. Our core values were geared around it. Everything. We had unique processes built around it and everything. So pink was our thing.
So you built that company, eventually sold it, and now kind of walk us through what you're doing now. And obviously we'll get into sales, but just kind of walk us through where you're at now and what's going on.
So prior to selling, I had started coaching other companies. I had done some speaking at some Corteva, the Western division of Corteva, put on a conference for their Centricon clients. And I spoke at that a couple different times. And I had people come up to me afterwards and say, do you ever help people? Like, I would love for you to come into my business and just help. And I'm like, no, but why not? So did a few of those and had so much fun doing it. It didn't feel like work to me. It was a lot of fun. And when I started seeing how those clients grew, and the effects of what was going on, I really, really loved it. And so I had a few clients before I sold, just because I was only working on my business and had time to help others. And I love helping others and giving back. And so it just became fun for me. So when I sold everything, I ended up doing it not really full time. I do it 3 days a week. But I've got about 20 clients that I help on a one-on-one basis. And so some of them we meet with weekly, and some I meet with a couple times a month through Zoom. And we work on their issues and work on things in their business and go through the how to get some stuff done, not just top level ideas or 20 foot above ideas, but we actually get into how to actually execute the ideas and make them happen. So
one of the things that you've been a big part of is industry and non-industry peer groups, and the associated group and some of the other coaching groups and whatnot. And how have they helped shape your career? Tell us about your experience with peer groups, both in the industry, outside the industry.
Sure. Huge game changer. Huge. So I was in Associated Pest, which was a industry peer group. Loved it. Got a lot of, best practices that companies were doing. Learned about benchmarking, learned just different things, the monthly payment subscriptions, for instance, people talking about changes they made in their business that made a difference. And so it's always good. It's a strange industry that we share everything, right? It's very interesting how companies are so willing to share how they do things or what they do. It's the execution that makes a difference. I remember Mr. Cook eons ago talking about what they did at Cook's Pest Control, and people are like, why are you telling people this? And he's like, it's all about the execution. Not everybody.
I remember sitting in the same conversation with Tony Massey. Same thing.
Yes,
I'll
same
show you
thing.
everything, but let's see you execute.
Let's see executed. Exactly. And I remember leaving my visit with Tony Massey with a stack of stuff to try to figure out how to execute when I met with him and Harvey, 25 years ago. And so, so it's a lot, but it is a great sharing industry, and people are willing to share ideas. And that's why the peer groups are so great, is because there's a lot to be shared and a lot to learn from each other. Outside of the industry, I have been in Strategic Coach since 2008, and Strategic Coach meets once a quarter, and it changed my thinking on stuff and how to utilize the expertise of others, and how to just take a day to yourself and think about your thinking and what it is you want from your business, and what types of things would make a difference, and getting other people's feedback. And so all of that is a huge investment of not just money, but time. But somebody told me once, if you invest at least 10% in yourself and in your business, it'll return tenfold. And it's so true. I mean, it's what you get out of it is huge. And I'm glad to see new industry peer groups popping up and stuff like that. I have coaching clients that are in your peer groups. I have coaching clients that are in David Billingsley's middle management group. And I have coaching clients in McFarland Stanford's group. And so it's, we all offer something that meets, and there's those companies that are investing in themselves are really growing, and it's fun to watch.
So what's the difference between a strategic coach and say one of our groups, or even Associated, or, McFarland or David's mid-level?
So strategic coach is more for the entrepreneur. And so it's just you're in there with other business owners that aren't in your industry. They could be. I know Donnie's attended Strategic Coach as well. Aaron Richardson's in Strategic Coach. But it's just a way to really sit and think, get some concepts, think them through, and then have other people give you feedback on your concepts. And, there's a lot of similar ideas out there. Are there new ideas? I don't know, but it's how often do we take a whole day off to think about ourselves and what we want from our business, and then what we could do in our business to deliver that.
Yeah, I think I just want to echo what you said there, Sheri. I mean, the strategic coach is more about the entrepreneur, but, with these peer groups, it's more about you and the business, and which is kind of different, right? Because, when you got your peers, it's all about what's working, what's not working, what are you doing? And it's the focus is, at least in my experience, has been on business performance, whereas strategic coach is more about the entrepreneurial performance and what are you doing there? And so there's a different focus. And I think you should be, at a minimum, I think you should be part of a peer group for your business, because you absolutely want to, you just can't get all of that in a Pest World or, any other conference you're attending. And the accountability side of things is really good. But ultimately, in my mind, strategic coach is all about the entrepreneur. What are you doing as a business owner, your performance there? Whereas a peer group is more about the business and how well are you able to, execute your business plan and what are you doing there? So
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I invested in my people learning as well. So like Laura was in Strategic Coaches Leadership Group or team lead or whatever they called it. So it was like how she could help support me in the things I was trying to execute and get done. And we were speaking the same language, but Laura was also an associated. So she too was hearing the things that we were doing in the industry and what people were doing so she could help execute those. So I think, we all have different needs. I know a lot of people who the owner and their head lead person or their COO or whatever position that is, they have them in another group so that they're getting a different perspective on stuff and they're learning as well.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to sales. So we're talking about the topic here is from lead to lifetime customer. And, obviously I know you've been doing a lot with sales. Can you just kind of walk us through where your brain's been at on sales and kind of what you're doing and really how it's benefiting, I guess, some of the folks that you're consulting with? And obviously we'll dig into that a lot more, but let's just start with kind of maybe a high pass on what's going on and what you're doing.
Sure. So obviously we all need sales to grow our business, right? And not all of us want to be in the door-to-door sales business that is gotten so prevalent in the pest control industry. And in order to achieve our goals, we've got to have sales there to achieve them. And so what I found was in talking to different companies and different people is when we hire a new technician, we put them through 3-4 weeks training. What does that training look like? They might service, if it's residential, 200 homes before they're released on their own. But we'll hire a salesperson, and because they took a sales job, we just expect them to sell with no training. Or we have a CSR who knows how to answer the phone, so we expect that CSR to handle the leads coming in and close those leads with absolutely no training on how to handle the call whatsoever. And so many people, they don't know how to train to do train their people to do sales. They know how to train a technician, or they have another technician to throw them in the truck with, or however they're doing training, which is interesting subject in its own right as to how a lot of companies do training. But with sales, it's like there's just a lot of expectations with minimal training around it. And they might give them an hour or so of training and just expect them to get it forever. And salespeople, no offense to salespeople, I am one of them. We can be real head cases, right? Like we can get in our own minds. I mean, we can really we need more ongoing therapy than a lot of other positions and stuff. And so selling is a mindset as much as it is following a process and having the skill to sell. There's a lot of mindset around that needs to be dealt with and addressed and talked about and overcome and things like that, in addition to the training and the process to follow.
So salespeople can be head cases and they can get in the heads of owners too. So
sure.
And drive them nuts. But
they can be a little bit of maintenance, huh?
Yeah. Little, right? So one day you want to hug them, the next day you want to kick them. So
exactly.
Summarized sales management right there. But what else? So you had, it's funny. I was just at a conference and the trade show area was full of, 10 years ago, it was all chemical manufacturers. Now it's all software and whatnot. But there's all these apps out there, right? That's the new thing. And you were doing that before it was cool, right? So you developed an app that helped get your KPIs communicated to your team and gamified them. And like I said, there's a bunch of them out there now. But how did that idea pick up steam? How did it help? What were some of the limitations on that?
So, we ran out of whiteboards was what happened, like getting the numbers on the whiteboard. And then,
Right.
and then it's like, okay, we can now do spreadsheets, but how do we get the spreadsheets in the people's hands that really need to see it? And technicians weren't coming in the office anymore. I mean, we could get the spreadsheets on the TVs, but if the technicians weren't coming in the office as often as they used to, how do we get the numbers in the technicians' hands, in the salespeople's hands and stuff like that, so that they can see how they're performing? Because it's back to that old inspect what you expect. If they can see it, you're managing what you're looking at, stuff like that. So we just took what we were trying to achieve on spreadsheets and put it in an app so people can easily see it. So the technicians, the salespeople, the people on the phones could get their numbers in their hands instead of having to come into the office to see what the numbers look like. And so just purely as soon as you start talking about it, and as soon as you start asking them what their numbers are and getting them to, report it, then they start looking at how other people on their team are performing, and some competition occurs. Not everybody likes competition, but those of us who do, it causes people to start performing and changing how they're getting some stuff done and achieving and creating some games around that.
So I want to go back. You were saying before that on the sales side, that a big challenge is that a lot of owners, they invest a ton of training for technicians and more of the technical roles, but they really fall short on the sales side. Mm-hmm. Can you talk through, like, what does that look like doing it right? You know what I mean? Like, obviously, like you said, not every company is set up like a door-to-door company where they have professional salespeople and they're very well trained and they train all the time and they role play. Can you just talk through, like, what does really change? What does good training look like? Like, what does a good training program look like? And then how do you do it?
Yeah. So my training is good training. So good training looks like, so they need to be like, you need to have a system for selling. How do you want that sales call to go? Is it going to be in person? Is it going to be over the phone? What does it look like? That has to be clearly defined. If it's in person, what does that in-person call look like? Like, how do they greet the customer? Do they do an inspection? What does the inspection entail? How do they present to the customer? What is it that they're, what are they presenting? How is the pricing going? And if they're doing it over the phone, how is that phone call handled? And what is the system for managing that phone call? Because if you don't have a defined system to take control of the sales call, then the customer is going to control the call. And they're going to call in and they're going to say, no, I just want a price. And so we're going to give it to them. Well, we don't want to give them a price until we find out what is it they're looking for and build some value and get them to like us, bond with them, set some expectations. So we want to control that call before we start delivering price and stuff like that. We don't want people buying on price. We want them buying based on what we're going to deliver to solve their problem. Mm-hmm. And so there needs to be a system, number one, around that. So the company needs to clearly define what type of system they want to follow for their sales. So that system then has to be trained. And it might sound real simple. The phone call takes 5 minutes. Therefore, it's going to take me 5 minutes to train you that call. No, you've got to role play it and role play it and role play it until they get it right. And not every phone call goes the same. And so you've got to role play out different possibilities and different ways to do it. And because most people don't like to role play, most people don't do it.
And do you have a way to get people to want to do role play other than being like, you're going to do it?
There's some fun ways to make role playing work.
It's a fun.
It's a fun thing. So first of all, if you role play phone calls on the phone, don't look people in the eye when you role play a phone call because they're not used to looking people in the eye. So let's sit in separate offices and pretend to call each other. You can also sit back to back and role play that out so you're not looking at each other in the eye. We used to do some fun stuff where they'd sit back to back and we'd have a phone call going or a face-to-face call going, and then we'd tap people out and somebody else had to jump in and pick up the sales call, whether they were the client or they were the company, to role play it through so people were paying attention and could pick that up. But it's just something that takes practice. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with role playing. Yeah.
Gosh, you just reminded me of a episode of The Office. Role play. I don't know if you've ever seen it or not, but anyway, I'm not gonna. We'll have to link it up. But it's where they're, Dwight's obviously a salesman, and anyway, I'm gonna stop there. I'm not gonna
look it up.
I'll have to. I'll put it up on the show notes. But it is absolutely a hilarious role play sales call. So, so getting back, so there's obviously you got to have a system. You've got to practice the system. Let's talk about measuring and what do you feel like is the key things? Okay, so you're going to create your sales system, which, by the way, what she just said is very difficult. I mean, it took us almost 2 years to get a full unified sales system into the business. I mean, it sounds so simple, and it is when you're smaller, but when it's for outside sales, inside sales, your CSRs, and there's like one common system, it gets hard. At least it was for us. Maybe, we are on a struggle bus, but nonetheless, there's the system itself. There's practicing the system. Let's get over to evaluation. What do you consider to be kind of the way that there's obviously, are you hitting your sales goals, but
right.
what would you consider to be really effective metrics that you should be looking at? And then how do you evaluate how well your sales system is actually working?
So obviously what you're selling. So what's I always had my salespeople set their sales goal for the month, because if they set their sales goal, and with encouragement to always increase it, right? But if they set their own goal, they had more buy-in to it. So we set the sales goal, which then turned into a daily sales goal as to what their average per day needed to be. So that's one. How many leads they're getting and how many of those leads are actually getting proposals or quotes around them, because we do have disqualified leads. They're not in our service area. They hang up on us. Maybe they put a form submission in and then you didn't hear from them again, but that's still a lead that needs to be counted so that we can see if our marketing dollars are working. And then how many of those quoted services turn into actual sales. So you're tracking a close rate and see what that is. And then from there, I like tracking what of my sales or each salesperson sold were recurring sales, because that's the name of the game, right? That's what grows our business. How many were one times being sold, so that we could make sure that we weren't just saying, or you could buy a one time, or you could buy a one time, and not selling those recurring services. So let's track that. And because anything you track like that is going to improve. And then I have different clients. Some track how many termite baiting systems they sell, or if they're running a special, how many of the specials that they were selling that month, so they could track what that turned, those types of things.
Gotcha. What do you got, Dan? I got more stuff, but I can keep going.
Well, if we're going to go another 7 or 8 minutes, what else can we talk about? Well, you want to talk about the sale of your business? That would be pretty neat. It's a little self-serving on my part, but
Yeah,
tell me about, you sold your business to Haley Capital as their platform for Rocket Pest, who is just killing it right now. And how'd you make that decision?
Well, it was doing the coaching kind of led to the decision of selling the business, because I wanted to focus more on the coaching part of it. And selling to Hallie was a great decision. Thank you very much for bringing them to the table for us. That has worked out very, very well for us. It went well. I sold both with and without help. So when I sold my Florida locations, I did it on my own. I do not recommend that. I do recommend having help when you sell your business, because there's a lot of things. It's more than just the price that you're getting. There's a lot of work to be done to and due diligence and stuff like that when you sell your business. And so when you don't have help, you're doing all that yourself. You can't really ask your employees for help because you don't want them to know you're selling your business. And so it ends up being a lot of work on you after hours because you can't always do it during hours. And then there's more to the selling price. There's more to it than just the price you get for your business because there's the tax ramifications too. And so when you've got somebody in your court who gets that, they can help negotiate that better for you. Takes a lot of the emotion out. Plus you got somebody to complain to if it's not going right. Mm-hmm. And to say, hey, this isn't working, or, oh my, let me tell you about this thing that happened. So yeah. But yeah, no, I had a great experience with Dan selling my business, and it's all worked out real well.
Excellent. Well, thanks for the plug.
Sure.
So back to our regularly scheduled program.
No. Donnie, I'd like to add to the sales training thing is, because ongoing, just like technical training, ongoing training is necessary, and not all of us are equipped to continue to come up with that subject matter and all that ongoing training. And so in technical training, we have all the distributors and all the different suppliers that will help with technical training, and the state associations bring in technical training, and we all have to get CEUs and stuff. But on the sales side, there is no CEUs required and things like that. And so as business owners, we have to come up with that type of training, and we don't always have that available or time available. And so I started doing what I call sales training cohorts, to where it's a 6-week training class. We bring in professional sales trainers that help, and we collaborate with them, and we do online sales training for 6 weeks, and we have a peer group around it so that we can role play and practice in that peer group from that cohort. And from that, we created an online course so that if you hire somebody new, you can put them through the online course. There's all the mindset training that I talked about earlier, where salespeople need that mindset adjustment when they're in a sales slump or something's going on. They need to change a mindset, or things aren't working. And it's like, oh, I skipped that part of the process. And so all that's reinforced in the online training, and then the cohorts or the live type trainings, so that people can ask questions and give input. And we have a peer group around all of it. So if people are doing the online sales training, they can participate in the peer group. If they're doing the cohorts, they can participate in the peer group. And the peer group's purely optional, and it's a part of it's just our give back, because we found they have questions and they need the role playing. And if they're not getting it in the office, then we're helping them get through those steps.
And I would add, the only thing to add to that is, oftentimes, if you're not the best salesperson, that's fine. Just find someone that can help train your staff. And, I think a lot of owners are pretty good at sales. Not all, but a lot are. You have to do it, especially if when you first get started. But that doesn't necessarily make you a good sales trainer, right? It doesn't necessarily make you a great sales teacher. And so I would highly recommend that, if you're not doing something like this, at least investigate and make sure that you're covering for that weakness. And listen, we all have it. I'm not a great sales trainer. It's not one of my skills. There's a lot of things I'm good at, but that's certainly not one of them. So, okay, were you going to say something, Dan, before we finish out here?
I think the overcoming objections and having canned responses, and just to really think about there aren't that many objections, and they're played out over and over again. And what I've seen successful sales trainers do is be able to take the emotion out of it, and just, it's a tennis match. They hit it to you, you hit it back to them. And so.
Yeah. Well, and what I find that's really interesting in this industry is we tend to tell our clients what it is we do. Well, we're going to go around the house 3 times, and we're going to do this and this, and we're going to put out these products, and we're going to do this. You know what? As a female who is your buyer, we don't care.
Right.
We don't care how you do it. All we want is reassurances to know that those ants in our kitchen, or those roaches, or those spiders, or those mosquitoes, or whatever it is, all we care about is you can take care of it, you can get it done quickly, and you can be out here tomorrow to handle it. That's really a lot of what we are looking for. Is we just want it off our to-do list. Our husband was supposed to handle it for us. He didn't necessarily take care of it, right? And so now we've had it. And
he bought a couple of little, ant traps, and it's not working.
Yeah, or whatever they didn't work, or whatever it is. So it's like, that's all they want. And so they want reassurances that we're the company for them, and that we can get out there and we can do it. And we want price off the table because we want them buying for other reasons. And so, it's not talking them out of the sale because we talked too much. And it's purely telling them, this is what you need, and this will take care of your problem. And we can be out there tomorrow to do it, kind of deal. And so I think we're kind of our own worst enemies in that way, because we don't have the training. And so everybody in the company is selling it different and running customers off instead of closing those deals.
So if people want to learn more, they want to get in touch with you, what should they do?
So they can go to my website, which is pestcontrolbusinesscoach.com, and they can schedule a free appointment with me, free call with me. They can email me and ask me questions. My email's on there. There's ways to get in contact with me, and happy to help them out. My next cohort online is October the 10th. And so there'll be some information on social media about how to sign up for that.
And what's that, like a weekly?
It's weekly for 6 weeks, and we go through all the steps of the call and how to handle the objections, and go through some mindset training, how buyers want to buy and how sellers want to sell, and how to play that buyer-seller dance, and different things like that. And so how to take control of the call and how to increase your close rate on those calls.
And how long is each session?
So it is 1 hour, but we stay on an extra half hour for any questions people have. And then we do an additional hour-long peer group call as a part of that, so that people can practice role playing.
Nice.
Awesome. Good.
Excellent.
Well, Sheri, this has been fantastic. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Just a reminder that all the resources and topics that we talk about today are available on the podcast website. We'll put a link up to Sheri's website as well. You can just go to pmpindustryinsider.com, take a look under show notes. It'll all be there. And as always, we appreciate any positive ratings and reviews that you have for us. If you've got complaints, just general negativity, we ask you to direct that at Dan. And with that, Sheri, thank you for joining us. It's been fantastic, and we will see you all next time. Take care now.
Thank
you.
Thanks, y'all.